Today, I will teach you how to improve one skill at every rating benchmark, from Challenger and going all the way up to 2400. What's up guys, it's Big Moran, and I've made thousands of guides for skill cap over the past 10 years. During that time, I've reviewed hundreds of VODs from players just like you in the PvP community, and I wanted to share the most practical advice for improving your rating. Starting with what I think everyone can be doing better, but especially Challenger level players. Every season, the #1 way to break through rating barriers is simple: do more damage, or healing. But here's the problem. Everyone knows that doing bigger numbers is good, but nobody ever explains how to do it. Let's fix this with some simple tips for each role, starting with melee. By far the biggest headache for any melee is uptime, especially against classes like mages and evokers who drag you on a scenic tour across the entire map. The solution? Well, just don't chase. There's a really bad habit for melee to pick one target and tunnel them down from start to finish, which will nerf your overall damage a ton against these slippery classes. So instead of trying to min-max your uptime on one target, think about uptime in general, constantly tabbing to nearby players, pets, or totems whenever there is a gap between you and whoever you're trying to hit. This is something the best melee are constantly doing. Instead of wasting precious seconds waddling to a target they can't hit, they'll just make a pit stop attacking something else, maximizing damage and keeping pressure going, or just building resources like rage, combo points, or holy power. Now for all of you casters, I know that getting trained isn't a walk in the park, especially in this day and age of micro CC hell. But if you want to increase your damage, start weaving in more instant cast globals no matter what you're doing. Many casters have a tendency to sit still after getting kicked, or just as bad, they will spam fake cast over and over, essentially interrupting themselves. The quickest fix to both of these problems is to weave in more instant globals. The best players will throw in a few instant casts while they're juking, and this could be anything from refreshing a dot, using a root, or pressing dispel. Instead of wasting time, be more productive with every GCD, because in WoW, APM actually does matter. Even if you do get interrupted, don't just stand there, try to be productive. The best players don't really care if they get kicked, since most of the time you can just hop on over to a different spell school instantly. If you're casting while interrupts are ready, just keep your finger hovered over a different spell school to instantly start casting something else the moment you are kicked. As far as healers are concerned, one of the easiest ways to maximize healing is to focus more on maintenance, even when there is no damage to actually heal. What I mean by this is if you have an important buff to keep up, like Earth Shield, Life Bloom, or Atonement, then focus on refreshing them earlier than you might think, and this is for two very important reasons. Number one, if you stay ahead on maintenance, then CC chains are less punishing since they give your teammate a small buffer to stay alive, even when you can't control your own character. And number two, most maintenance buffs have important healing modifiers attached to them, and the only way to heal through high damage is to abuse as many modifiers as you possibly can in order to do big healing. I can't stress enough how much easier it is to climb as any class once you start putting out bigger numbers. Remember, there is a vicious cycle. Low damage or healing means less pressure for your team, allowing the enemy team to play even more aggressive, which causes you to do less damage. This is why there are 3 videos I always watch when trying to learn a new spec at skill cap. I start by understanding damage and healing modifiers with our goals videos, and then I check out the sustain priority to make sure I know when to press each spell, and then I wrap things up with the bursting guides to learn how to, well, one-shot. I swear that these 3 videos alone are good enough for me to hit at least 1800 on classes that I kind of just suck at, and they're just a small part of a giant playlist that we have for every single spec. I'm also a huge believer in our nameplate profiles, which make it really easy to maximize damage thanks to all of our debuff filters, which isolate key information and instantly increase my awareness. Since skill cap has worked so well for me, I promise it can work well for you too. If you sign up and don't gain rating, you'll get every penny back. As always, there is a discount link below, but for now, let's get back to the video. So now we know what to do to improve as a challenger player, but what should our priority be once we hit rival? Just as a reminder, we still want to improve our damage and healing no matter what. But if there's one very crucial area to improve at this rating, it's defensive play. I mean, just think about it. Since damage is the #1 separation point between rating benchmarks, then part of climbing will be learning how to efficiently deal with more damage. The motto at this rating is kill or be killed, and to avoid dying, players will tell you to stick to the script without really explaining what this means. PvP being scripted means that everyone is kind of just playing like a robot. A robot would detect inputs like, I don't know, a major offensive cooldown like True Shot, and then produce an output like a defensive cooldown in order to survive. So in order to play scripted, your goal is to respond 1-to-1 the moment the enemy team presses any offensive cooldown. But there's a twist. Sometimes you'll need to trade defensives even when the enemy team isn't popping their offensive CDs. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's put every defensive into one of 4 boxes. Number 1 will be mobility. Number 2 is going to be damage reduction cooldowns, and then we're going to have healing CDs, and our 4th box will be buttons. For most classes, you will want to work your way from left to right, relying on the most efficient ways to avoid damage first, and then relying on your last resort cooldowns, well, last. While not every class has a mobility cooldown, it's usually the first line of defense for staying alive. If you can immediately teleport or blink to safety, then sometimes you don't even need to use other defensives. Let's go into our next box and talk about damage reduction CDs because there's a golden rule I want you to follow. Damage reductions get more value the higher you are on HP. For instance, if you instantly trade Bark Skin at 100% HP into enemy cooldowns, you're going to mitigate a lot more damage than if you were to wait to press it at 50% HP, because here you're taking extra damage for no good reason. While you can get away with greeting large, long-lasting defensives like Dispersion, it's better to be faster with smaller and more modest defensive CDs. But there's a different rule for healing cooldowns like Health Stone, Exhilaration, and Renewal because they follow the opposite pattern. Get more value using any sort of healing cooldown at lower HP, well, up to a certain point, of course. The goal when using these types of cooldowns is to be greedy, but not too greedy. And finally, last resort cooldowns are typically your last line of defense. In most games, you'll be trading these either because you completely ran out of other options, or if damage is happening so fast so you don't have time to slow it down before you instantly die. But as we mentioned earlier, enemy cooldowns aren't the only reason you should ever trade a defensive. We highly recommend using the healer and CC recore to recognize when your healer is stuck in crowd control, because when your healer is taken out of the game, you'll have to dig through one of your defensive boxes to find the right trade. We know defensive play isn't always glamorous, but if you want to break through rival ratings, you need to get in the habit of trading defensives in a smarter and even more robotic way. This is a crucial step in playing more scripted, but as we're about to find out later, sometimes you have to put the script down. Alright, so now we're at the duelist ratings, which I think is the wild west of PvP. For many players, the grind to 2400 will be a rocky journey. At these ratings, players are now doing big damage while being pretty good at staying alive, but if there's one thing that can elevate both of these skills, it's positioning. I think sometimes players have the wrong idea of what positioning means in WoW. Like, they think there are some sort of precise coordinates where you need to stand on every single map. And I promise you, Nagarin Arena doesn't have a secret pixel that you can stand on to get the perfect positioning. Instead, good positioning really means how well you can move around the map depending on the state of the game. So let me give you the perfect example by first talking about casters. In a perfect world, you'd never be attacked and you could simply stand in line of sight of both enemy DPS while putting yourself directly between them and their healer, allowing you to play goalie by punishing the healer with CC if they ever leave the pillar. It doesn't matter exactly where you stand as long as you can interact with all three targets at the same time, and this is kind of ideal positioning. So when you're left free, you can then use positioning in order to maintain offensive control over the enemy team. Players like Chanimal are insanely good at doing this. As long as he's not getting attacked, he'll make sure to play goalie while endlessly harassing the enemy healer. But what do you do if you're under pressure as the caster? Well, now you have to think about how you can separate the enemy DPS from their healer, which Chanimal does here by kiting around the giant pillar while under pressure. The warrior will chase him like a dog, but is eventually forced to swap off since he's taken too much damage and his healer is out of line of sight. I'll admit that ranged DPS do have an advantage when it comes to positioning since they're able to kind of dictate where the enemy team stands, but there are some clever tricks that you can do as a melee too. For instance, in melee cleave mirrors, one of the best ways to kite is towards the enemy healer. At first, this doesn't really make any sense. I mean, why would you run away from your healer and towards the enemy healer? By doing so, you now have 3 targets you can attack or cleave down, while your healer can now enjoy some safety by being further away. This was a real strategy that was used in the recent AWC. By pushing into the enemy healer in these melee cleave brawls, you can do more damage while your healer doesn't have to worry about AoE CC or interrupts. And speaking of healers, positioning can be a bit tricky, especially in solo shuffle, but more often than not, good positioning simply means playing safe. I think there's a bad tendency for healers to make highly offensive plays thinking they're being the hero for their team, only to get immediately CC'd for poking out from behind a pillar. Now, I'll admit as someone who plays healer myself that positioning in solo shuffle is also super tricky since you can't really control what your teammates are doing. But as a golden rule, you should always try to be in a position where you can support your team while minimizing risk. And if you do want to make offensive plays, make sure it's guaranteed, and this could either mean waiting until you are on DR already, or pushing in when your team already has control. Now, if you're already a 2400 player, you're obviously doing something right. So when I was planning this video, I decided to ask some pro players what they think separates good PvPers from the best of the best. It took a while for all of us to come up with one single answer, but eventually we settled on one thing. The best players have a deep understanding of win conditions. Players at these ratings are so good that you can't really cheese your way to victory, and I mean, you're not going to win for free. You might have a game that lasts 5 minutes, but during that time there's only 1 or 2 windows where you can actually win, and these windows can be as short as a few seconds. Now with that said, I think there's a really big mistake that players have been making since the beginning of PvP. They will lose and open up details and look at their death log, trying to answer the question, how did I lose? But I think the better question to ask is, how did I not win? If you've ever wondered why Waz is so good, it's because he's able to piece together different parts of information in real time in order to carve out a win condition. He's constantly checking Omnibar to see enemy cooldowns, looking at Gladius to check trinkets and DRs, and monitoring the cooldowns of his own team to see if his team is safe or when burst is ready. And then using all that information at once, he's able to select the best target. For many players, this might seem impossible, but it's something you can practice without even playing. And here's something I kind of want you guys to actually try. So next time you're watching a stream, you should try pressing pause, and then check to see what cooldowns each team has to make your best guess at who is, well, winning. And even better, you should try to guess which targets are the most likely to die and how long the kill window will be open. You can then unpause and discover whether your intuitions were correct. When you're able to recognize these patterns on stream, you should try to do this more in your own gameplay. And for this reason, VOD reviewing is probably one of the best tools you can use to improve. And it's even something that every professional team does to prepare for tournaments. But once again, instead of just looking at what caused them to lose, they will backtrack in order to find the kill windows that they might have missed. And by the way, if you want some help reviewing your own gameplay, we offer one free VOD review a month to every SkillCap subscriber, with the goal of giving you personalized advice that can help improve at any rating. This personalized approach is something we try to deliver to every course on our website, which is why even after 10 years, SkillCap is still helping thousands of players every season. And honestly, there's really been no better time to join since we have so many amazing benefits, including the SkillCap UI, which again, I personally use especially to help me gear my ults with the brand new Bissless feature. We're so confident we can help you hit your goals that we even offer a rating gain guarantee. If you're interested in signing up, we have a special discount link below. For now, I want to thank you all for watching. See you soon.